The first step to tuning the tambura is to learn the names of the strings, what they are made of, and what notes they need to be tuned in. Let us look at this particular tambura that is tuned to C sharp. There are 4 strings in a normal tambura. There are exceptions, but then the majority of them have only 4 strings. And the first string in the order of playing is the panchama, which is tuned to the lower octave panchama and is made out of bronze. The second and the third string are a pair known as sarani, anusarani or the juri, and they are tuned to the middle octave sa. And invariably the strings are made out of brass or pitar. The last string that is played, the fourth string, is called the mandra or the kharaj, which is tuned to the lower octave sa, made out of bronze or copper. Stainless steel strings and even silver wound guitar strings are also used widely today when playing the tambura. Let us see how the tambura sounds. So the general order of the strings from left to right in the order of playing is as follows: pa, sa, sa and sa, which is the lower pa, the middle octave sa and the lower sa, or the panchama, sarani, anusarani and the mantra, or the pancham, juri and the kharaj. Though the notes are fixed, they are tuned in different octaves based on the pitch. The male shruti or the pitch, as we saw now, which for example is C sharp, is tuned as follows: the lower octave pa, the middle octave sa and then the lower octave sa. The female pitch on the other hand is tuned as follows: the panchama is tuned to the middle octave panchama, the 2 middle strings which are a pair are tuned to the upper octave shadja, and the last string is tuned to the middle octave shadja. There are also other ways of tuning it based on which raga is being presented, but very rarely seen, especially in Carnatic concerts. Examples are using the panchama as the madhyama. So the tambura will sound ma sa 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 while singing a ragam like say Hindolam, or using ni sa 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 as the tuning while singing a raga like Hamsanati. Now, when we talk about tuning the instrument, we have to first understand that both coarse tuning and fine tuning are possible with the help of the pegs and the beads. However, learning to tune it at the pegs completely is important at the beginning stage. This is because the minute differences while tuning at the beads might be difficult for the student to accurately grasp during the early years. Tuning the tambura is a process, like tuning our mind into the right temperament. Attitude is most important when we begin to tune the instrument. It will not happen in a hurry or at the pace at which we want it. Tuning the tambura is definitely an art, a subtle one, and something that is refined with age and experience. Here are some basic points before we get to the actual tuning. The left hand is used on the pegs, the bridge, the thread, and the beads, while the right hand is used only to pluck the strings of the tambura. Hands have to be firm with the pegs and delicate with the thread and the beads. The tuning order of the instrument is different from the playing order. The playing order is the pa, the pair of sas, and then the lower sa, but the tuning order is first the sarani or the second string while playing. Once this is tuned, next is the anusarani, where the frequencies of both those strings match. Once these two are tuned, then we tune the mantra. Once these 3 strings are tuned, we then move on to the last string, which is the panchama, but is the first string when being played. All the strings, when tuning, have to be played clearly and loudly. Make sure that the source volume that you're using as a reference point to tune the strings is low when you begin tuning. The jiva or the thread is extremely sensitive and reacts differently according to where the instrument is played. Therefore, it is important to tune it at the same place where either we are going to play it or somebody else is going to play it for us. The beads or the manika should be firm in holding its position. A loose bead will keep shifting the pitch, so make sure that it is pushed in before you begin to tune so that there are no changes once you finish tuning. Now, let us begin tuning the tambura. As we discussed, the source volume must be low and the first string that is tuned is the sarani. The pitch that we will be tuning the tambura to is C sharp. The pegs are used for coarse tuning, and it is important to make sure that the strings are brought to the frequency as close to the source as possible or the adhara shajja in one swift turn of the peg and not in multiple twists and turns and plucks. Once the sarani is tuned, next make sure that the jiva is in its correct position. For the sarani, as discussed, the position of the jiva is of paramount importance to bring out the harmonics. Once the jiva is set, this then becomes the tonal reference and the tonal point that all the other strings also have to adhere to so that the sound emanating from all the four strings are uniform. Next, use the same method to tune the anusarani. But instead of matching the anusarani with the source reference, it is more prudent to match it with the sarani that is already tuned. So, one of the ways of tuning the anusarani is to make sure that it is being plucked along with the sarani so that you can make sure that both of them match and sound the same. Once the anusarani is tuned, play the pair of strings together. Both the sarani and the anusarani, when tuned perfectly, will sound like one rounded frequency without any distortion. Once this is achieved, we will then move on to the next string, which is the mantra. The mantra is also the bass note that gives the tambura its depth of weight and sound. This particular string offers the boldest overtone when tuned accurately. The overtone that is heard is the antaragantara. Let us now tune the mantra. As you can see, once the mantra is tuned, the overall richness and harmonics that is heard when all the three strings are played together are significantly higher. Let's listen. Now, we finally come to the panchama, which is the first string while playing but the last string while tuning. The panchama gives out the other overtone, the chatushruti rishabha, that is often heard when tuned in relation to the mandra string. Let us now tune the panchama. As you can see, when I tuned all the 4 strings, I tuned them only at the pegs, not at the beats. Once we have mastery of how to tune the instrument at the pegs, during a concert or during a situation that requires us to tune the tambura quickly but accurately, the beats become that much more handier. Once the panchama is tuned, it is then important to play all the 4 strings together many times over to make sure that there are no other fine tuning adjustments required and to make sure that the tuning is settling down. So in a well-tuned tambura, apart from the sarani anusarani matching, when you play the mantra, you will hear the antaragantara.
Ra, sa, ka.
Also, when you play the panchama, you will hear the chatushruti rishabha.
Pa, pa, re, pa.
And in combination, when you listen to all of the 4 strings together, the harmonics and the overtones play around with each other and offer a range of other frequencies that every human here perceives differently. Also, in a perfectly tuned tambura, when all the 4 strings are stationary, if only the mandra is plucked, that will also cause a resonance and sound from the other 3 strings, where you will hear the upper octave shadja and the panchama. You can test this by placing your fingers on the other 3 strings, where you will feel the vibrations stop when our fingers come in contact with them. So when we talk about the harmonics and overtones that inspire so many musicians, let us understand the role of the jiva in creating these harmonics, and let us listen to how the sarani sounds, the first string that we tuned, without the jiva in place. This is how the jiva sounds. There is no resonance, there is no depth of sound. Now let us see how it sounds with the jiva in place. The sound stays on for much longer, there is continuity of sound, and there is more life, which is also what jiva means, and you will hear all the different layers of vibrations and harmonics. Needless to say, there cannot be a more apt name for this thread, the jiva, which means the soul, as it undoubtedly gives the instrument life and soul. The relationship between the strings, the bridge, and the thread is what gives rise to this magical sound. So let us learn a little bit more about the bridge and the jiva. The bridge is curved and meets the string at a perpendicular angle that is conducive to bring out the many overtones. When the bridge is positioned properly at the center of the tabli and in line with the dandi, the harmonics are created both at the bridge and at the point of contact where the strings are played. All the strings must pass through the bridge and be exactly parallel to each other. What is the role of the jiva? The jiva essentially provides a slight lift to the string from the surface of the bridge, so that when it is plucked down vertically, it vibrates over the bridge at a perpendicular angle to accentuate the harmonics. The Jiva of all the strings must match the tone and feel of the Jiva for the Sarani. The Jiva position is best determined when it is tuned in the upright position, as it will be played. Selecting the Jiva string is also extremely important, because one that is too thick may cause a distortion, while one that is too thin might not bring out the harmonics. Based on the quality of the thread, the sound can be round and open or soft and almost romantic, but this is all just my own perception. The perception of the pitch that the tambura is tuned to is also more accurate and enhanced when the harmonics resulting from the tuning is higher. I personally prefer using a white thread, as you can see on all of these three tamburas, so that any wear and tear or dust collection can be immediately identified. I also got a valuable tip from Vidwan R.K. Sriram Kumar on always having a string of thread tied to one of the pegs of the instrument so that it is easily accessible if required suddenly. One thing to keep in mind is that this is just the basic method of tuning the tambura. But over time, all artists develop their own methods and practices. In fact, my teacher when tuning the Panchama always plays the mantra together with it to match the tones of both these strings separately. Once this matching is done, he then checks it again with the Sarani and the Anusarani and plays all the four strings together to make sure that it is completely tuned. I, on the other hand, feel more comfortable tuning the Panchama with the support of all three strings played together in a cycle. I have seen artists tune the Panchama with only the Sarani and the Anusarani, and I have even seen artists tune just the Panchama with the source without even playing the mantra or the Sarani and Anusarani. So there is no one correct technique. What is important is that each artist identifies the best method that works for them and the tambura is tuned perfectly. The tuning of the tambura is the most important process before beginning the concert. My guru spends all of his attention and energy on making sure that the tamburas are perfectly tuned, where he finds his inspiration from the sound of the perfectly tuned tambura while beginning a concert. This shows that musicians who really treat the tambura with utmost respect derive a lot from it, especially in performances and in their own artistic journey. There is, however, something strange that happened at a few occasions, where when he passed the perfectly tuned tambura to one of us, his students, the tambura suddenly seemed off pitch. But when he plays it again, the tambura sounded absolutely fine. So the difference in temperature, position, and even the pressure between two different hands sometimes play an important role in maintaining the pitch. On such occasions, he just asks another student to step in and play the instrument for that day instead. This shows that even as a student, where the job of playing the tambura might seem extremely easy, utmost care and sensitivity is necessary to be able to play the tambura properly. To understand what one needs to do to make sure that such differences don't occur, let us look at the different playing positions and postures.